Untamed is going to be untamed. It's going to be a little crazy. I want to talk to my people. I want to talk to my brothers and sisters. We can have grace and humility in how we interact with other people.
Oh, hot dog, look at you.
And nobody talked about what's really happening.
And let's have conversations about what truth is.
After the last election, many have been asking about election integrity. Some are also wondering who's able to vote and who can't, specifically when it comes to non-citizen voting. Joining us now is Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson. It's always good to see you. Thanks for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me.
You know, first of all, we want to point out that the Secretary and her team have agreed to come on at least once a month to really kind of sit down and talk to you, the Fox 2 viewer, about questions that people have. And people have made this into something that it's not. And I want to give you an opportunity to tell us what you mean when we say non-citizen voting.
Well, only U.S. citizens can vote. And first, I'd say thank you for having me. It's really important in this era of misinformation that we equip every citizen with the information they need to know to be informed and engaged in this particularly critical presidential election cycle. And this is one of the examples of how, in this moment, there's going to be a lot of misinformation injected into our political discourse to try to provoke fear or even confusion about who can vote and what's actually happening, and can we trust the results of the election to be an accurate reflection of the will of the people. Sure. And in this case, you have this question of what if ineligible people are voting? What if people who aren't citizens are voting? The reality is only U.S. citizens can vote in our elections, and we have many checks in place to ensure that the law is followed by everyone.
And, you know, the risk that some of these people take to be in this country, not be a citizen, and try to commit fraud in order to vote in an election, the consequence of that is pretty extreme for them, and that's something that they're aware of. But when it comes to non-citizens, the question that people have is, hey, is it true that people who aren't citizens voted in the last election? You can say no.
Correct. Yeah, there's no evidence that non-citizens are voting. There's ample evidence that only U.S. citizens are voting in our elections. And the reality is we have so many checks in place with our decentralized election systems, from the local elections to the state level to even the counties in between, that we catch it if anyone attempts to in any way cast a vote if they're not an eligible voter. And we hold people accountable. It's a significant risk, particularly for non-citizens, to try to break the law in that regard. And there's no reward, because we will catch it and hold people accountable.
And so people have tried, in not only here in Michigan but across the country, but you're saying they're caught.
Yeah, well, certainly there's been a study that said there's more people on the U.S. Space Station 7 than there are who have tried to vote illegally, 6 nationwide. So certainly it is infinitesimal when it does happen, but we catch it. And ultimately, you know, we want citizens to know that when they cast their ballot, that they can trust not only that their vote will be counted, but that we're only counting valid votes.
Oh, Secretary Benson, we know that there are many different types of people who believe different things. There are.
Welcome back on this Friday. I just want you to know that Jocelyn Benson is a lying sack of shit. She's lying. What she said is not only not true, it is fundamentally falls along the same cartel media that's out there. And by the way, the guy that's talking, the guy that literally was in there talking, that guy doesn't probably know how to even use the cell phone. And they said that there's more people on a space station than try to actually subvert the system. You can go back to 2020, 2022, and 2024, and you could not have Any election in the state of Michigan, not one of the elections in the state of Michigan would be certifiable if you were looking at it from an audit case from a financial basis. Not one. You couldn't sit here and have a conversation about the fact that elections are free and fair based on the outcome variables. And by the way, they keep all those away from people. You're not allowed to have access to cast vote records. You're not allowed to examine the ballots. The systems themselves are behind a black box. Mail-in ballots are basically collected with impunity. You have no idea whether those mail-in ballots ever saw the light of day or even went to a place. You have 300, 400, 500, 800 people that are registered to a single address. And let's not forget that you just had James O'Keefe that was up in Michigan looking under the hood of what was happening in Michigan. This woman uses the same information, misinformation. She is a treasonous traitor. She knows. She absolutely has knowledge that what she's saying is not true. And I pray to God that someone just comes in, arrests her, charges her for treason. And I hope it's not through the judiciary, a rotted judiciary. I hope it goes through the criminal courts inside the military. I pray that that's the case. Now, will it be? I don't know. But let's talk about the slave state that we live in. Let's talk about the 107 million illegal Americans, illegal immigrants. Americans see it everywhere. Now, last week we put up the post about Dar Leaf. Dar Leaf had the one thing, and then we talked about the things that they said that the county clerk and recorders would take care of it. Well, that's a lie. That's a lie. We proved that that's a lie. We have county clerks that have come forward. Those county clerks have said, hey, listen, we're whistleblowers. You have someone inside of Benson's office that is saying, you're lying. You're lying. And these people are doubling down on a lie. They're doubling down, tripling down, quadrupling down, saying it's a part of the political discourse, and they're trying to create fear. Nobody in this country on the conservative side wants to instill anything other than transparency. But that doesn't stop someone like Jocelyn Benson, a no talent, absolutely stupid, dumber than a rock individual, whose claim to fame is playing for Team Evil and being selected, not elected, to the position she's currently in. That's what you deal with right now in Michigan. An absolute turd, a person of absolute, not just mediocre intelligence, but below average intelligence that wants to sit here and tell you there's nothing to see here, slave. I want to talk to you about something else that I think is important. I think it's important we talk about this specifically. We have David Clements that's going to join us today. We're going to wreck it, Ralph. I think there are things that are going to come down over the next 30 days that are important. But you don't need illegals to vote. You just need a system that allows for illegals to vote. So illegals don't have to vote. They just need to know who the zeros and ones are. You could have people that never voted in their life, and that could be the votes that they steal. They're not just stealing illegal votes. And again, they want you to fixate on one thing. I'm going to tell you right now that the systems within our election systems in all 50 states are fraudulent. I don't think that. I know that. Doesn't matter what state you're talking about. Whether we're talking about Alaska or Maine or Virginia or New Mexico or Colorado or Texas, there is not a system that is not designed to steal the voice of the people in that area, to subvert it and make it so that they can have a selection process that leads to higher taxes, more regulations, lack of rights, flock cameras on every corner, entitlements for illegals, school systems that basically are the most degraded and substandard that you'd have in almost 188 nations. These are all realities that we face right now because of selections that happened in every state. You can't run away from it. Parents are trying. They moved to Florida only to find themselves in the same hiccup that they had when they were in Colorado or California. We're held hostage. Americans are held hostage by radical, leftist, evil players that frankly want to steal everything from you and hand it over to people that don't deserve it. Foreigners. And you can see that happening, by the way, as we start to virtue signal and put people in positions like judges and having them run for office. And again, people that can't fog a mirror, like Ilhan Omar. I mean, there's a ton of them. Hakeem Jeffries is probably one of the most stupid men you'll ever come up against. I mean, I look at people on our side and the things that the radical left says, and I go, how how is this even? How did this person even get to a place where they can stand on the stage? Phil Weiser, running for AG, running for governor of Colorado. You want to talk about a man who is just devilishly stupid, not a very intelligent man, just not. I've sued the Trump administration for 78 times. Well, you lost the first 77 times. But let's not talk about that. I want you to see this. This is Dar Leaf's video today that just came out. We just got this. It has not even been posted yet. By the way, guys, make sure it gets on all the socials. As soon as you put that up here, make sure it gets on the socials as well. More information related to how they steal elections. Go ahead and play it.
Hello again. This is Berry County Sheriff, Berry County, Michigan, Dar Leaf. Last time I spoke to you, the CARS database from the Secretary of State's office was the topic. Remember, the CARS was generating an automatic registration on voter rolls for non-citizens? Well, the collateral damage for the CARS database is to a non-citizen man who spent months working on becoming a citizen the right way. Kudos to the clerk over in Allegan County for helping this man out. But Homeland Security sent this man a letter advising him they were suspending his application for citizenship because he was registered to vote for several years as a non-citizen. Records show that the Secretary of State's office registered him. The local clerks informed the state that there was no signature for the application, but the state kept him on the voter rolls for years without his knowledge. I would invite any non-citizen listed on the voter roll to make a report to the Berry County Sheriff's Office. I will ensure that the federal government is provided with your name and information to hopefully preempt a negative federal investigation, a delay to your citizenship process, or potential removal from the United States. Thank you again, and let's get this problem taken care of.
What he's saying is someone almost lost their application for citizenship because they were on the voter rolls. Didn't say that they voted. But then again, you don't know what they assigned a voter to any. They could have just created names out of thin air. The system is designed for that. They want to tell you we have safe and secure elections, and the radical left is running around just basically walking away from the will of the American people. So by the way, is the right. So are the people that say that they're there to help us. They're on our side. They won't talk about the election systems either, even though the evidence is mounting. It's clear. We have so much evidence. We don't need any more evidence. We already have it. But radical leftists and the right, they meet each other in the aisle of how do we feed off of the American people, and is this going to take away our ability to do that? And do you remember in New Jersey last month when ineligible voters were put on the rolls and were actually voting? This was happening. Here, let's look at Harmeet Dhillon talking about this on Fox.
Do you plan to take this fight to the Supreme Court?
Well, we do. It's actually closer to 30 states. 20 states have given us their voter rolls voluntarily, and we've found hundreds of thousands of people on those voter rolls who shouldn't have been there. Now, since the governor made this announcement, we've opened up an investigation. We asked her to disclose to us the names of the 6,600 individuals who were wrongfully put on the voter rolls, and then the 400 who voted knowing that they weren't entitled to. And today she hasn't responded to us yet, but she did tell the New York Times and others in New Jersey that she wasn't going to give us that information because, quote unquote, we would weaponize it, and she doesn't trust us with the data. Well, who can't be trusted with data, Governor Cheryl? It seems like it's actually New Jersey, because these people said they weren't entitled to vote, and then you put them on the voter rolls in your state, blaming the vendor, calling it a glitch, etc. It is the job of the election officials, not some data vendor, to determine citizenship when they put people on the voter rolls. That's federal law. And it also sounds like, Liz, the state allowed these people to stay on the voter rolls for more than a year after they knew that they weren't legally entitled. That is a violation of federal law, too, federal criminal law. So we're looking at this very carefully.
Imagine having a business, by the way, where the CEO can't do anything because HR tells them, no, you can't do anything. I'm telling you, you're not allowed to fire that person. That is, in essence, what is happening right now in our country. We have a foreigner. We have an activist judge foreigner. We talked about this person, Indira Talwani, an activist judge. This is the same judge, by the way, that put the block in place against President Trump with the Supreme Court. Supreme Court 6-3 said you need to do this. Had to lift one of the other blocks. Again, though, just yesterday, last night, went in and put another block in place, a 14-day hold on the USPS changes ahead of the midterms, trying to run the clock. Here's this piece of trash. And just so you know, I'm not going to apologize. These aren't Americans. These are foreigners. These are foreign traitors to our country who have done an immense amount of harm. The judiciary is rotted. Kelly said, and this is down in Brazil, he says, if you don't get rid of the activist judges and their ability to basically subvert the will of the people, which is what is happening, he says, you cannot fix anything. So that's why I know something's happening over the next 30 days, because it has become more and more clear that our problem, our enemy, is these radical people that are trying to subvert the U.S. and steal the very voice, the sovereignty of our nation. Go ahead and play it.
Judge in Boston has paused a Trump administration plan that could affect the midterm elections. The U.S. Postal Service was temporarily blocked today from enforcing a new rule to restrict some mail-in ballots. The judge said USPS is requiring advance approval for ballot envelopes despite approaching election deadlines. Some Democratic-led states and voting rights groups argue the changes would create major hurdles for election officials and voters. The judge said the plaintiffs are likely to win on their claims that rule is unconstitutional, and the Postal Service doesn't have the authority to implement it. A hearing on the case is set for September 3rd.
So let's be clear. The post office doesn't have the authority to implement it because they don't have authority. The president doesn't have the authority to say that we should have safe and secure elections. The only people that have authority are the Mark Eliases and this piece of trash that we have as a judge. This is not the first time that these judges have done this either. And again, Republican, Democrat, Independent, you can't care. The people in our community are the ones that are adversely affected by the ability for them to come in and steal and make you a slave. Everyone is affected by these pieces of shit. Everyone. Not just me, not just Republicans, not just people that are like-minded, everyone. You have certain number of people that are out there that go, oh, we have to continue to pay property tax because how are we going to pay for education? You create an environment where you don't have 60% of the money that goes to the Americans being fed on like pigs by people in the bureaucracy. That's how you do it. You don't make it so you rent your house from the government and everywhere you turn. The government pretty much has turned us into institutional slaves, sharecroppers on our own property. We own nothing. We own nothing. They can take from us whatever they want. They got cameras on every corner, guys. I mean, how do you think this is supposed to work out? How? Let's talk, though, about this judge. Her father, Harmeet Dhillon, was born in Punjab, India. He left India at 19 to work in Norway, then immigrated to the U.S. in 54 to study geophysics at Columbia University. I should just rename it CIA University, where he earned a PhD, went on to become a pioneer marine geophysicist and a Columbia professor. Oh, no question. Columbia professor. You don't say. Him and Jeffrey Sachs. Her mother was born in Germany in 1936 and grew up amid World War II. She immigrated to the U.S. in 53 at age 17, studied at, say it with me, CIA University. Indira was born in Englewood, New Jersey, and attended the Phillips Exeter Academy in Harvard and earned her JD from, you ready for it? UC Berkeley. Who else went to UC Berkeley? Who else went to UC Berkeley? Who went to Cal Berkeley? Who? Anybody? Oh, that's right. Eric Coomer. Eric Coomer went to Cal Berkeley. One of the most radical breeding farms for, yeah, you got it, CIA. You think that's, I mean, just do the math. It doesn't, you don't have to have a whole lot of link charts in order to get back to what has really happened and where the educational institutions are inside of this model for destroying the sovereignty of not just the United States, but nations around the world. These are betrayers to not just the people in our country, but to the 7.5 billion other people that live in the world. It's being controlled by a certain group of people that go in and they wreak havoc and create chaos, steal elections, and put substandard things in place so they can explain away with it. That was just a glitch. That was just a problem. We haven't had anything happen in our country in the last 30 years that is not tied to the subversion of the CIA. She became a U.S. district judge for the District of Massachusetts. Colorado is, and as you go through this and look about this judge, this is what we get. We get radical leftists. And I'm sorry, but there's a little country overseas that thinks that they control everything. We destroy people, level things, turn it to rubble. Act with impunity, hold their own people hostage, lie about the fact that people are filled with hate when they're not. They just want accountability. That's the judge. Groomed through the CIA university into another cartel environment to treat the American people like they're less than zero. So then I want to put this up because I had a post that I put up about Griswold, who, by the way, she knew this was going to happen. They signaled to each other. It's all signaling, by the way. You think that somebody gets on and talks on TV, that Jocelyn Benson talks on TV, and it's not set up. It's completely set up. They knew what they were doing before they got on. They knew what they were going to do to block certain things that happened next. All of this was planned, very planned. Sorry, we have a problem here. I'm going to do. Hold on a second. Okay, got it. Let's put it up real quick. This is Jena Griswold already saying November that Colorado's mailing ballots it says Colorado's mailing ballots to everyone in October anyway. They don't have to listen. If you want to know that we're in a war, and I don't know how close to a war you can get without something like this, SCOTUS clears the path. Colorado just shrugs. Same Jena who sent 20,000 voter registration mailers to non-citizens. Gold standard my foot. Enforce it. They don't feel like they have to be enforced. These are the people that are in control of our country. President Trump's not going to have much of a choice. You have an opportunity to have a Julius Caesar moment, hand back the reins to the American people, get rid of these fraudulent systems, but it is going to take a forceful action. It's going to take a hugely forceful action. And I think it's coming. I think there's a lot of, as David puts stuff up, he says, he uses this word. He said drip. So I watched his stuff. He said drip, and I was like, drip, drip. In other words, there's tons of stuff that's happening right now. I go back to what General Holt said, and even some of the things that Juan O'Savin said. There's a lot to be said for what we're dealing with, and there's a lot of, fifth dimensional, whatever you want to call this, that we're dealing with, this warfare. But we're actively in the war now. We're at war, and we're at war with the devils like these that we're talking about now. So with that said, I don't know if he's here. I think he's here, but David, welcome to the show. Take a stab at it. There he is, Mr. MAGA. How you doing, brother?
I'm good, Joe. Good to see you.
It's good to see you. It's good to be seen. It's really good to be seen. So what are you up to? Let's start there. We can get into this stuff later, but let's what have you been up to?
Working on my next article and video.
All right.
And should be good. I'm going to try to walk everyone through the next 60 days based on what I'm seeing. And there's lots to be optimistic about.
Hey, look, I've gotten to the point now where getting upset just doesn't solve anything.
6 years. It only took 6 years.
It only took 6 years. Yeah. Well, so 3 weeks ago I woke up and I'm sitting there. I think you and I talked a little bit about that 3 weeks ago, and I went, "Yeah, I just don't care. I'm smelling the dirt. I know what it looks like. I know what the outcome is. I mean, it's still going to happen. Like, time is going to happen regardless of what I feel about it. And I don't think that the appetite of the American people is that they're willing to tolerate it past November. So one of the two things is going to happen. Either the people are going to rip the Band-Aid off, or President Trump's going to rip the Band-Aid off. People are going to go to prison. And I think people are going to go to prison. Like, I can see it. Like, I see the stuff that it's like, you put it up, drip, drip, drip. I'm thinking to myself, yeah, it's dripping. So I don't get upset. I even had somebody yell at me in the car, like cut me off, yell at me, and then started screaming. I was like, have a good day.
Yeah, probably because you were driving the way that you normally drive.
Well, that might have had something to do with it. I mean, I might have been on my phone talking and doing other things.
Yeah.
Don't judge me. Don't judge me.
Yep.
So what do you? Well, let's get an update on your court case. Can we get one of those updates? Because I know you've been going through this thing with the New Mexico, the University of New Mexico, New Mexico State, excuse me.
Yep, I was set for a hearing this past Monday, and the matter was continued. I don't think there was anything nefarious over the continuance, but the court, for whatever reason, couldn't access certain documents in their Odyssey system. And the reason why this sucks is that the continuance from the original hearing, which took place in January, it's 8 months to wait that long to get, to your hearing to see if your complaint is going to survive or not, is a bit frustrating. And I just got a notice last night that they've reset the hearing all the way till January. So, slow wheels of justice or none at all. But I'm not too annoyed by it for obvious reasons, which is I'm trying to open the door for millions of litigants who think that they've lost their causes of action on statute of limitations ground. The way that this was gamed was that if you're the government, typically your statute of limitations to sue government entities is 2 years. So what did they do? During the pendency of the Biden regime, you had every agency lying through their teeth with an official government seal saying that all of our vaccines are safe. And you basically forestall anyone from having access to a successful lawsuit, because if you file a lawsuit, they say, how dare you? This is de facto frivolous because the CDC has spoken. Health and Human Services has spoken. The science is settled. You heard from the science, Dr. Fauci. So it was in that landscape why I didn't file a lawsuit within the first 2 years. Because if the culture doesn't change, then you're just going to end up not only losing, but creating precedent for other people to file their lawsuits and have them unceremoniously shit-canned. So what was beautiful about what I think I'm trying to do is that there are ways around the statute of limitations through this thing called equitable estoppel, meaning when you see fraudulent concealment and you see discovery that you otherwise would not have access to, guess what happens legally? You get a new statute of limitations. And so the miracle that was RFK Jr. getting appointed to HHS was automatic disclosure of all of the studies that were fraudulently concealed, which gave me a new lease on life. So if I can prevail and keep my lawsuit going, it's no guarantees that I'll win, but if I can at least get a ruling that I'm right on the statute of limitations, that means there should be a lot of copycats out there filing lawsuits for people that think that they're dead, they're out of the game. And so just to put this in a context, Senator Ron Johnson put out a study on the fraudulent studies that were there with the masking studies. This was an official record from the Senate, which means that it's self-authenticating and it's admissible as a matter of law. Second, you just had Anthony Fauci plead the fifth 111 times for lying about many things. One of those things was having knowledge that the miscarriage rate in the first trimester was way bigger than what was reported. And then he went on live TV and told everyone there was no risk. That was one of the issues that I raised back in 2021 in my classroom with the video that went viral. Dr. Jim Thorpe reported that the miscarriage rate wasn't 12%, but 82% because they were
So they were lying. They were lying about everything.
They were lying about everything, fudging the numbers. And then David Morenz, who is the head of NIAID, who is the top advisor to Fauci under, that former administration, just pled guilty to fraudulent concealment of COVID records. So all of these things provide me with pinpoint examples of the government's collusion and the reliance of my cowardice university that knew better. I mean, everyone knew that there was something wrong, and I put them on notice. But there's got to be good faith and fair dealing in any contract. And there was no good faith and fair dealing for them to investigate these things. They wanted the bribe money. So CARES Act, all of these things where people were out there trying to get COVID money was their incentive to basically crap all over our written contract. And we've seen people recently indicted, I think it was in New Jersey, where people were committing fraud and getting those COVID contracts. So you start putting all of this together. As long as we've got RFK Jr. at Health and Human Services, I can wait, because what we just saw the past month, everything that I've just been able to share with you right now, it's going to continue. So New Mexico State is in a lot of trouble. It's just a matter of being patient. So that's the latest update on my lawsuit.
So did you show up for the meeting, or did they just basically say, hey, look, we're going to put this off? Did you have a semi-hearing where they're like, yeah, we're going to put this hearing off? Or was it?
We had the hearing.
Are you having conversations with the attorneys on the other side to say, all right, we'll settle it for this, or we'll do this?
Yeah, we had the hearing. It just was continued because of the difficulties. The attorneys are scared. They're very sheepish with me. So I send emails. They don't respond. I rub it in their face. It's the typical game where they know that they're representing Satan and that I've got the high ground, and who wants to have a conversation with anyone that can rub your face in it. So I don't shirk back on it. I know that these guys are carrying water for the equivalent of Nazis that were complicit in genocide. And that's what it is. So yeah, they've got their mark. They have their insurance carrier. They're able to bill like crazy and make their money. They do not care one bit about the fact that people have died to the tune of millions. And, so I'm just an annoyance. And in their arrogance, they still think that they can get rid of me. Okay, I'll stick around. I'm very patient. I've been waiting for 6 years. I'm still here. And the victory, again, for me, isn't some settlement. It's not restoration. It's to open the floodgates to allow millions of people to understand that you've got a viable cause of action right now because of all of the fraudulent concealment by our United States government. And as soon as everyone picks up the memo on that, there should be mass litigation. And that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that I'm not the first that's suing New Mexico State University. I hope that there's thousands that do it.
Well, I think you're always the pioneer, right? I mean, you've never been one to shy away from being the pioneer. First out of the door. Let's talk about the great. Look, I think you're going to be victorious, but I think that you're the first to dance on this, or one of the first to dance. So I pray that my fear is always going to be or my trepidation would be the rotted judiciary, right? And the fact that it's so rotted. That's a real concern. I mean, look, the way that when I explain this to my wife or people that ask me about it, if the judge follows the law as it's written, I win. Right.
And there's not a case on point that exists that would make this a dispositive issue where you would win on summary judgment, which means I get a jury, I get a trial. And I'm very confident that if you give me a jury and a trial, I'm going to kick the other side's ass. That's where I'm comfortable. This waiting, it's, the procedural labyrinth that usually benefits the defense. So I've got to be patient, live with all of this stuff. But if we follow the law I win. If we're going to devolve into the corruption that we've seen, and people just need to dismiss the case because they're part of a scheme, that's possible. It could be even probable. You have to keep in mind that the very courtroom that I'm suing in addition to all courtrooms, instituted the mandate that I'm suing for. So I'm going in and attacking, whether they know it or not, the subconscious of the judge, because the judge was part of a mandate scenario where he enforced the same rules in his courtroom. So you have to understand, psychologically, going in and filing a lawsuit of this kind, the judge is going to have to come to grips with the fact that he was enforcing something that was unlawful. That doesn't bode well for someone like me if your ego, your pride gets in the way. And oftentimes judges look for the easy way out. So is that a possibility? Sure. So what do you do with that? You say, Judge, give me your order. I'll appeal it. And that's all you can do, is you just have to be prepared to take this all the way to the highest court of the land if possible. So I'm prepared for that contingency if it happens.
You know, the one thing that I know about you, because I've had you involved in legal, the stuff that I'm dealing with Eric Coomer specifically, is that you're a brilliant attorney, right? And your ability to see a process from beginning to end is almost uncanny. It's a talent that in any other world, if we weren't dealing with all the stuff we were doing, would propel you to be. You could pick anything. You could say, I'm going to go be an injury attorney, and the fruitcake lawyer out there could generate 80 million from it. You generate 800 million, right? If you decide to get into criminal law, you would just Wreck-It Ralph. I mean, there's like nothing that I wouldn't put in front of you. Like you rebuilding Hollywood as an attorney. Boom, it's done. Next. What else are we talking about? So I got to ask the question based upon what I've seen, the talent that I know you have. This is a hard question because I've said it before. Why aren't you in the DOJ? Why are we staring this down and you're not standing in pole position? And I see some of the other people they put in those positions, President Trump's put in those positions. Why are you not in that position? You were a brilliant prosecutor when you were there. You understand law. You have the theories of law, being a professor. Why in the hell are you not sitting in pole position or in that seat doing the things that are necessary for the American people? Got to ask, because it bothers me that it hasn't happened.
Yeah. Probably a combination of two things. One, you've got thousands of lawyers that are vying for the position because of the prestige that it offers. And that's not the reason why I would want to serve. So you have to understand that there are lawyers that dream of going to law school and they get to be the guy, whether it's as a clerk for a justice, a U.S. attorney, the DOJ, and those positions, the ones that are truly meaningful from a standpoint of prestige, are very small. And I'm not one of these persons that was kind of groomed for, that type of work. I've kind of been a line infantry attorney that's been willing to get his hands dirty, and I really don't care about the title so much as I want to be effective. And so, knowing that about myself, I would never serve under someone that I, one, didn't respect or didn't have an adequate vision for solving the problem. And so when I see many of the people that have been empowered at the Department of Justice, if we're just looking at what they do and what they've put out there, I would have misgivings. And I don't want to just apply and go through a vetting process to, after 30 days, being pissed off. I mean, that's not wise on my part. So part of it is just knowing where you're effective. And I'd probably have to limit my reporting and the things that I put out, because there's always a price, right? If you work for someone, you work for someone. That means you got to limit your views under the First Amendment. You don't get to go on people's shows. And and give them the same insights. So on the one hand, if you've got access and you believe in the team that you're part of, there's potential opportunities that have come my way. But I don't mean this out of hubris or pride. I just feel like I would do a better job leading an effort than following someone that I haven't seen, at least objectively, out loud for the public's consumption, a position that accounts for all of the myriad of ways that our elections have been subverted. And so I don't want to be the person that's like, Harmeet, how come you guys are ignoring the tabulators? Like, hey, how come you guys are ignoring this? Like, why aren't we doing this? I don't want to be in that position. I just want to be effective. And, with hundreds of thousands of subscribers, I'm able to get a point across, albeit with a lot of censorship, and fill a role that I think helps the public. And the other thing is this, Joe, I've long maintained that the only way that you solve this problem is through the military taking a lead when it comes to prosecution.
Yeah. I agree with you, but they can make you work for JAG too. I'm not opposed to it. I mean, that can put you in anywhere. I mean, I've seen some commissions happen. I've seen weirder things happen. I mean, look,
I know, and I've offered that, Joe. Look, I've been on here. If anyone's watched, I said I'd even get a haircut. I would gladly.
You wouldn't cut your beard.
I would
not cut your beard.
If they told me that I could help prosecute war crimes and get a seat at the table. Obviously, that would be really, really appealing to me. To serve in that capacity. But again, I don't know. I don't pretend to know. I know that there's some good people there. I know that Trump, his best people are people that we don't know who they are, and that's just the way that you're supposed to do things. You're not supposed to telegraph who your real team is. And most of the DOJ stuff for me is just it's a distraction. They're not designed to deal with the problem. There's a public facing part of what Trump is trying to do. And we get those drips, and those drips are kind of fun to watch. I know that they're not satisfying for everyone because they want the flood. They want everything out there right now. I see this as a tourniquet where there's being more pressure exerted. And over the next 60 days, we're going to see this continuation, and one of two things will happen. And I don't have any doubts about this. Right? In light of the Supreme Court's ruling and the executive order that Trump put out back in May, you're either going to comply and give us a shot at a midterm, or most likely you're going to fight us and expose yourself along the way. Either way, we're going to get what we want from a standpoint of a secure election this run, or you're going to give us the grounds to declare a national emergency, and we're going to get there a different way. But, look, that executive order from May talks about penalties for state officials in the event that they violate the law. And so right now, as far as the clock that I'm seeing, I think September 4th is basically the clock to see who's going to comply with the cleanup of their voter rolls. And at that point, you're basically going to have legal probable cause to start arresting people for their defiance. So you can have a Chris Mays say, over my dead body, am I going to comply with this U.S. Postal Service rule? And she can tout the fact that she's, joined 22 other states to file a lawsuit. Jena Griswold could say that we're going to mail it out, but at the end of the day, they don't direct the Postal Service. All it takes is the president as the chief executive to direct the postmaster general to not deliver. Like, people forget, like they think that that's just going to happen. Like, when the president picks up the phone and Jena Griswold picks up the phone, you tell me who you think is going to have the tiebreaker on whether they're going to honor some type of fraudulent method to capitalize on something that they clearly need, which is the U.S. Postal Service to be a part of the mail-in ballot operation. So not only do you have that, you also have the grants and funds that are attached to it that they can start pulling. So I'll be looking at September 4th very, very closely to see if Trump is going to begin doing things that are are tantamount to arrest. The reason why I think he's got to be smart about that is that as soon as you arrest an official who is tasked with carrying out elections operations, you are already in a national state of emergency because you have one of your 50 states that basically cannot run. The chain of command is going to break down. So if you pull the trigger and you investigate, arrest one person, it's on. I don't see how you can avoid a national emergency at that point.
Yeah, I see that actually coming down the pike, and you see what Colorado's doing. You see what these judges are doing. You have judges that are activists that are working towards this ideological bend of destroying the country, and they've taken control. That's how they got into the position that they're in right now. They're having conversations with their clerks, that are having conversations with people behind the scenes. These are activists. These are people that are on the surface trying to act as if they're honorable while really doing dishonorable things to subvert the will of the American people. And that brings me back, David, to this thing of the SAVE Act. Now, you have John Thune, you have people that are on our side. Both sides are terrified that the American people will actually have a seat at the table. It's not just the Democrats, it's both sides.
Yep, I agree. And, so look, it's probably going to be an unorthodox combination of unexpected people that will have a bigger impact on our elections than people realize. Scott Bessent will have a major role on stopping disbursements of federal monies for fraudulent systems. Count on it. The other person is Howard Lutnick, which people have not been paying attention to at all, which is, guess what? The Commerce Department has a huge role, especially under critical infrastructure, to take into account mitigation strategies. Now, the election crowd is fractured over this. They want messaging that's like, no, just get rid of the damn machines. We don't want to talk about mitigation. Unfortunately, the law uses mitigation as a key word for what he can do. But the beauty of that is he can impose hand counts. There's all kinds of things that the Department of Commerce can do that can track with what we know about the insecurities of these machines and help with exposure. So I think Howard Lutnick is going to end up playing a huge role going forward with the power of Department of Commerce. And this is kind of odd because a lot of people that understand the Commerce Clause, most of us get pissed off at how outsized its power is on the commercial affairs of we the people. In this instance, if they can help mandate that we secure our systems in a way that actually makes sense, I'm all for it. And so what will invariably happen, you'll have people like Adrian Fontes, you'll have the Jocelyn Bensons of the world fighting tooth and nail, which again creates greater criminal exposure for them. And it also justifies the grounds, if there's noncompliance, that what does Trump get to do? Impose a national security emergency. So it's game, set, match, no matter which way you want to slice it up.
This just, it's, I want to show you a few things because it just goes along that same thing. Like we find ourselves fighting against, like our headwind is, I don't know how to describe it. We have the headwinds that we know are the headwinds we're going to have, right? These are the ones that the Mark Eliases of the world, the Jocelyn Bensons, the people that are a part of this apparatus, the Jena Griswold, the Eric Coomers, the Dominion voting systems, all these different things, which I want to get into that too. But then we have another set of headwinds that is hitting us from the side, that is within the administration. So you can talk about what Kash Patel, whatever you want to call him, what he's doing, and some of the other people that are in the administration that look. Pam Bondi, let's use her as an example. That way, it's a foregone conclusion that she was a headwind, right? How do we reconcile what we're seeing in the media? John Solomon, there you go, a headwind, John Solomon. We can just patch the system. We'll just patch it. Everything's fine. Just patch it. How do we reconcile the radical left with those headwinds?
I think part of it just comes down to a paradigm of, do you trust the president or not? If you don't trust him, all of the things that you're stating, it's fair game.
Mhm.
My take last time I was in studio with you is that I believe that John Solomon was selected by the Trump administration to leak things at strategic times, which may understate what you and I both know about the severity of the systems. But in the past week, Joe, we've gotten into admissions of national critical infrastructure being breached. Todd Blanche reporting this. Now, again, what's omitted is a de facto statement on elections. But everything else, from NASA to the Department of Defense, there is an admission. So I see this as breaking news. Here's the latest. And we're getting greater granularity at each step of the way to get to the crown jewel of the battle between Team Evil and the Trump administration, which is a definitive exposure that 2020 was rigged. It's not debatable. And so you bring people there. So if you don't trust that Solomon was picked for that role, I can see why people are frustrated. I get it, but I've seen enough from this as this is part of that drip strategy of you bring people, you walk them incrementally. Now, you just can't. What I'm saying is you can't.
I can
Any
trust
other
the president
interpretation.
but also recognize that Brutuses exist.
Well, sure, but what I'm saying is Joe, like, I don't begrudge your ability to call out what's missing. I do the same thing with John Solomon in a different way. But the reason why I'm probably a little bit more even keel about what John Solomon isn't reporting is that I have an integrated way of looking at this, that it's coming. And I've seen his messaging on this particular issue become more and more granular ever since Trump's address. Now that was just a hunch based on what I think. I think he was selected to strategically give people news in bite sizes at the direction of the White House. It appears that is coming true. And even Steve Bannon recently had a person by the last name McCabe on his show. And what were they talking about? They were talking about stuff that we've been talking about for 6 years, but get the egos out of it. The fact of the matter is 6 years, they've said nothing. Yesterday, there was a report on all of the remote access and the Chinese interference within the election machines that actually happened on a war room segment. So I could sit there and say, well, damn it, where were you this whole time? Or I could just be pleased with the idea that finally the war room's talking about something that we've been talking about for years because the American people need to know about it. So is there a level of gatekeeping? Sure. I get that. Are there personalities that, we could sit there and say, hey, why didn't you talk about this when we've been talking about it this whole time? I get that. But all I'm saying is I'm seeing evidences right now where people with much larger platforms than you and I are talking about the problem and, more importantly, accurately addressing the machine component. So that's good news.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that in principle. I just, one of the things that has pushed people to, and I get it. I get the part that we aren't privy to the information. But one of the problems where the public says that the promises made, promises kept, has to creep in, and we're talking about it's going to happen over the next month, and that people will finally have that big sigh. I think that's going to happen. Like, I truly do. But if we get to this election and the election is stolen and we go into 2027 with all of these things not done, that's gonna put a lot of egg on a lot of faces, and the people that were out there talking about nothing to see here, they're gonna have a huge tailwind on their side that's going to lead to the impeachment of President Trump. So there's two. We're trying to measure, and we're trying to balance what we're seeing with what we know the outcome has to be. There's only one outcome, and that is President Trump is going to have to use emergency powers in order to right the ship, because the left is going to do it to wreck it if he doesn't, and they're going to wreck the country.
I think you're right, but and that's part of it. Is like, look, none of us wants to have egg on our face. I don't want to be the guy that's cheerleading Trump. I've been pretty on point for 6 years, about the red wave not materializing, and it didn't. This person's going to lose, and they lost. Explaining clearly why Trump won in 2024, despite rigged infrastructure against him. So, look, you and I have some credibility and cachet on, not being the hopium people. Right. I've just recently kind of been, put in the hopium camp because I'm giving people what I think are the insights on what has to happen now. But what I'm talking about needing to happen now has nothing to do with outvoting a process or too big to rig. It's because the circumstances are such that Trump has to defeat the swamp, and it's go time now. And I'm reading the tea leaves on why I'm so comfortable with that. I'm not interested in a midterm election, even if we were able to secure things. If the crop of candidates that are there in the general were selected in the primary. So even there, you've got a problem.
Everything's
so if I'm one of the bad guys, I'm sitting there going, well, if we've got our uniparty folks, let's give lip service to the Save America Act. Let's give token concessions to the Trump administration because we've got our locked in uniparty picks. And guess what happens in 2 years? He's gone. We can renege on everything. So that's a real possibility unless you believe Trump has that accounted for. I've seen enough from Trump that I know he has that accounted for. And there's no one that's got a greater stake in not having egg on his face than the man himself. So when you talk about impeachments and the other side, rearing up and putting him in prison, it's not like he needs a memo from Clements and Oltmann, like, oh, by the way, if you didn't know this, they're coming for you. He knows at the highest level that they're coming for him. The question is, why does he have such resilience and peace in the way that he is strategically unfolding, the counterinsurgency plans against the deep state? And it's a brilliant thing to look at. Either you're going to work with us and help us solve the problem, or you're going to expose ourselves and justify the grounds for a national security emergency. And one of the bigger things to think about, and this has some relevance on what I'm researching and writing right now, is there's only one U.S. president that is in our history that has used the military to quote unquote save the republic. And that was Lincoln.
Lincoln.
Now, Lincoln won, but did he win? If winning means that you lose hundreds of thousands of your fellow countrymen's lives, you could say that he didn't win. Okay, yeah. The Union was preserved, one side won over the others. I think that the people that have been advising Trump have taken a long look at Lincoln's legacy, and they said, okay, we're going to have to use the military to save this nation once again against the insurgency, the rebellion that is there with enemy combatants that are wearing suits, that are entrenched in political and judicial positions through rigged elections. But could we do something in a way that minimizes the kinetic aspect of what took place in the Civil War and make sure that you have a clean, swift victory that minimizes that? So that's why there's such an intentionality on the slow incremental awakening of people taking and digesting pieces on social media every day of corruption. Every day we're getting a dose of here's the latest iteration of fraud. So part of that is, frustration of how many days, how many months, how many years do we have to digest this before he does something? Or you can look at it in a way that I think Trump is trying to do is, I need 80% of the population to be on the same page. No debates, organically seated through your own subconscious where you've arrived finally, not because I'm forcing it in your mouth with a fire hose. Rather, you've been chewing on this filth for 6 years, and when he acts, you've done two primary things. One, you've identified the financial trails of Antifa, Black Lives Matter, all of the terrorist groups that are domestic, militant wings of the Democratic Party and the Uniparty. And have you inoculated the brainwashed sheep or drawn them away from this mass-induced psychosis to not participate and protest. And I'm telling you right now, Joe, on both of those counts, he succeeded. Besant has turned off the faucet from the funding matrix, so you're not going to have the same concerted resources and tools to proliferate through 20 different states.
On either side. On either side. Yeah, I mean, Republicans and Democrats don't have enough cash to do one election and one state.
They've already sampled the use of the National Guard in left-leaning places. They've done a free run on placing military troops in places in the event that you had something. You had the Karen Good fiasco. You had people that were shot when they were fighting back against ICE. So I see this as a perfect coalescence of messaging, psyops to bring you to a place where, okay, it's still going to get dirty, sure, but it's not going to be the Civil War. That's what Trump's trying to avoid. And I think that's why he's got to take us bit by bit all the way to the edge. And where the timing is what it is. It's like, okay, we're in election season. Right now, everyone is being forced into a funnel to start playing their cards to reveal who they really are. And we're seeing an increased exposure on both sides, as you mentioned.
I always get excited when I talk to you about. I wanted to pull this video when I talked about this stuff because that you and I have been iron sharpens iron over 6 years, right? We've been all over the country together and done some crazy stuff. You put out an amazing film, Let My People Go. I went and watched that again on Wednesday in preparation for having you on. And you are a researcher. You research everything to a degree that's almost uncanny. And when you did that, Let My People Go, you got to meet with some of the experts out there, the Jeff Lindberghs, the Lundberg, excuse me, of the world. And you came out the other end with that. And yet it didn't make people shudder because they did everything they could to shut it down. Now that we're through all that, 6 years past it, we're looking at the mountains of evidence for 2020, 2022, 2024. We know what the architecture looks like. We know how they're stealing elections. We even know that they're stealing it all the way down from the town council all the way up to the president. When you look at the infrastructure that we're taking chess pieces off the table now, and you look at the reaction from people like Mark Elias and other people like him, is there a concern that they know something or that they're preempting or can see what is likely to happen with this executive deal and that they're trying to set up some sort of trapdoor for President Trump?
Sure. It was actually you in 2022 when I was trying to understand this new dimension to my life, which was I never thought, even though I was in law enforcement, even though I was a prosecutor, I had never had any interaction with spooks, at least not that I know of, and spies. And as soon as I spoke up about elections with a platform, all of a sudden, spycraft, nation state spook level garbage started impacting me. And it impacted you. It impacted Jeff Clark. It impacted Professor Eastman. I mean, we were all, lawyers that did legal work. And I think it was when we were in Phoenix dealing with the Arizona crap that was going on when Kari Lake was running for governor. And I think we were on a plane, Joe, and you've probably forgotten this or you wouldn't have asked me the question, which is, when you're playing this spy game, there's a contingency plan and each side is responding to each other's contingency plan. And you go 20 layers or 100 layers deep. So obviously, to answer your question, there's a contingency plan and they're going to use whatever resources that they have at their disposal. The reason why I'm so encouraged that trapdoor is not going to work is because of how far ahead Trump has been. And this is where you start getting into the things that General Holtz probably shared on her show about what's going on in the Middle East, which is you're looking at evil families, bloodlines, cartels that are the funding matrix of our elections. And so while we've been very, very granular on the political corruption, the judiciary, the corruption that's there, you have to expand out and say, okay, who is the person that created the organic seeding, the financial breakthrough to fund all of this? And so when you look at the cartels, whether it's Cartel of the Suns, Tren de Aragua, you're looking at like 12 families that individually have greater net worth than our intelligence agencies. We're talking about worth trillions of dollars.
Yeah.
So when I see the extraction of Maduro with Delta Force, it's not that it's because he's involved in cartel and drug running. That's part of it. You tell me what's more important, the money that you earn on drugs or the fact that you can control any government's policymaking, military, because once you subvert the elections, you basically have the keys to the kingdom. What's more valuable? Without a doubt, it's the 72 countries that they've infiltrated. Without a doubt, it's the selection of judges, AGs, and the fiction that you can finance to make us think that we still have a system, more or less. So when you go into places and you're willing to play the game of everyone's narratives about who Iran is and what they're not. And Trump's sitting there going, Iran's not what you think it is. It's just a proxy for the for the City of London, transnational syndicate, whatever you want to say. But when you can place together how Antifa fits in the puzzle, Maduro fits in the puzzle, Iran's foreign minister fits in the puzzle as it pertains to elections, from the funding of it, from the engineers that are placed, from the servers that are located across the globe. How do you fight that enemy? You don't fight them at this superficial level where, the fight is with Jocelyn Benson. She's not even in the top 5,000 when it comes to your enemies list. So the fact that Trump will go in, flick the Rothschild family in the nose, flick the City of London in the nose, and basically turn off the faucet to the tune of $200 million a day by taking away certain trade routes when it comes to oil and all the things that fund these terrorist networks and cells, tells me that he's so far ahead of the trapdoor. So we're all we think Iran is this shows that Trump is crazy. He doesn't have it. What do you mean peace? What do you mean that we've won? What do you mean that the straits are closed? What do you mean that they're open? We follow that, and we're sitting there thinking that this guy is an idiot. I'm sitting there going, your guys are the idiots, because he is shorting the bankers. He is basically bleeding them dry, restructuring new routes, and creating a funnel where the entire grid is mapped out by Scott Bessent. So now when you get to the narrative war as it pertains to elections, you've already won the battle because you have crippled the funding matrix for protesters, radical judges. It's just a question of, are you ready to pull the trap? And when the arrests come, they're going to come quick. When the hangings come, they're going to come swiftly, and you're done. You've lost. You've got no moves. And I think they're out of moves, Joe. That's what I believe.
No, I think they are as well. You see it with Mark Elias, specifically what he said. And there's a certain portion of me, obviously, I'm very selfish in this. I want to see Eric Coomer, I want to see him in shackles. I want to see his attorneys lose their license and be disgraced for the rest of their lives. There's things that I want. I want organizations like the ADL and the SPLC, I want them to pay the price for leading Americans off a cliff. I want them to pay the price for, the gender dysphoria and for the grooming of children inside of our education systems. I just have a long list of things that I think should be appropriated to things that we need as Americans, right? Mm-hmm. And I recognize the first thing we have to do is the first thing first. But I want this to happen. We caught Eric Coomer. We got him. We have all the emails, all the everything, whistleblowers, we got it all, right? Oops. We have a lot more information than we know. And I know that President Trump, and I know that these people know about this. So as we go through this process, I sit there and I grit my teeth and I think to myself, all right, Lord, just It's not all about you, Joe. It's not about you, Joe. It's not about you, Joe. It's not about you, Joe. But I kind of want it to be about me. I just,
That's
at least I'm
okay.
being honest.
And you're not alone. I think everyone wants their day in the
Yeah.
sun. They want their piece of vindication. And
Yeah.
there's tens of thousands of people that have lost something, whether it's a small business, whether it's, COVID imperialism, what have you. But I think there's two things that have to happen is if our government is one of the people, by the people, for the people,
By the people, yeah.
then a lot of the things that we're seeing growth, and it's not enough for us just to point out the failures of the perceived failures, because I don't think they're failures, the perceived failures of the administration, that why haven't you done this to deal with gender dysphoria? He is. I mean, he's issuing the executive orders. The bigger question is, have we found our courage by looking at the courage that Trump has modeled to be abrasive in his messaging, in his rhetoric? I mean, the fact that he's, renaming lakes to Lake America, he doesn't give an F when it comes to.
It was pretty fun trolling him, though.
It's amazing. And so what he's done, if you take a look around at the stock of conservative men have someone, whether they want to admit it or not, that has given them cover, that it's not only okay to stand up and be politically incorrect and show up to these places and say, not on my watch. It had to start somewhere. And so it started with Trump being willing to be the guy that just threw a hand grenade into the realm of political correctness. And the fact that he survived gave us hope that we could, in our own way, in our own world, brace it and have someone we could always point to. Like, hey, if you got a problem with it, take it up with the president of the United States, because he's far more trollish than I am. He's far more, non-PC than I am. So there's got to be in tandem this idea of policy making and leadership from the highest level in Trump and the men of the United States, living out the reality in our own backyards that, okay, we're done with the pride shows. We're done with the cheating. We're going to call you out every which way you can. And the last article and video that I put out was dealing with a microcosm of this problem, which is the lack of unity, especially amongst Christians, that even now we're still bomb throwing, and it's usually Protestants versus Catholics, Catholics versus Protestants. And yet we've got Dearborn, we've got Dallas, we've got Mondami. And this isn't to, poke at Muslims and to know that there's differences between your moderates. I'm talking about Islam, the satanic thing that is Islam.
Yeah.
And there's a difference. Anyone that that's better than anyone that can distinguish between a Muslim man that desires peace, that might be culturally in a system that's terrible, versus a concept that it's winner take all. You don't get to leave our religion. If you leave, we get to murder you. Like that's Islam. And you can have all of your opinions about the different other denominations that are outside of Islam. Generally, as a rule, I can leave a denomination in the Christian faith and not get a mark of death from the overarching structure. And so trying to brace people for the idea that in the event that things do spiral out of control, and my working thesis is pretty simple. The deep state has two primary arms, one through a corrupted Vatican, where they can perpetrate and infiltrate social norms and change them through the authority of the church. There's a lot of people that I know, I'm dear friends with, that are not only they couldn't stand Francis, they're starting to see things with Pope Leo that's very reminiscent of Francis, but because it's got such a hold on the culture centers of American thought and what you can and can't do, you can gain consensus and wokeify an entire country through the quote unquote church. That's one arm. Well, you got to understand that the Vatican received substantial loans by the Rothschilds. And they've continued to have funding levers and streams that obviously there's just as much corruption there as there are in our political purview. The other thing is the Iranian proxy, and you could also call it the Israeli proxy. You've got proxies everywhere on when to disrupt and destabilize. So if you're stateside and you're sitting there going, like, Dave, what do you think the trapdoors are? Because that was your question. I think the trapdoor is this. If Trump ends up issuing a national security emergency, you probably have terrorist cells, not probably, you do.
Yeah.
Inside of radical Islam installations where they're sitting there going, now's the time. Like, it looks like we're going to lose this politically. Looks like the gig is up on creating false perceptions of legitimacy to get a Mandami in to run New York City. So now let's just take as much blood as we can. So my message for unity was really, hey, Christians, could we put down the sabers against one another and stand vigilant for the event that could go kinetic? And are we going to be able to protect our communities against a radical antichrist movement that doesn't care about the things that make our country great?
You know, what the great part about everything that you're saying is that it's supported by fact, and it's a very deep fact base, though. It's like a foundational fact base. On the surface, though, none of it's starting to grow. We can't see it yet, or it's behind some sort of mirror, so you can't see it. But I've been involved in this for 6 years, and much of the things that we thought would not manifest, I mean, 2024, perfect example, I was leaving the country, right? I mean, I was gone. And I had set it all up so that I could leave the country, and I knew at that point that I needed to leave permanently. And in the meantime, everything happened the way it's supposed to. The person that ended up leaving the country was Eric Coomer. That's a pretty good outcome for me, right? I get to stay in my home country. But it's been a difficult 6 years. I mean, would you agree? It's not been ideal, right? You're much more gray than you were 6 years ago.
Dude, I had brown hair in 2020. It's all gone. Yeah, there's been a cost. I mean, look, we'll chalk it up to whatever it is. I don't know. I don't think that you can really relitigate it in your mind and come to any other decision, because I can tell you this, I could have brown hair today by not stepping into the battles that we stepped into. But if I would have lived my life 2020 on in a way that was all about preserving my job and my security, I would be a shell of a man if I would have sat out for the past 6 years and watched and did nothing.
I
would
agree.
be so
agree with you.
shame-filled. And so what's the price of that? I think at this point, it's like, yeah, it's a lot of this has sucked. But I'll tell you one thing I don't regret is I know I'll never regret standing up. I would be ashamed if I for half of a decade stood on the sidelines just hoping that something good would happen and didn't play a role in it.
I think you and I are built the same way. Like we've said it. Like, look, if we leave tomorrow, it's okay. First of all, we have Jesus. And number two, I can say that now. I say that, and I probably should take a more humble approach to what I just said, because I've had some really dark days in those 6 years. I mean, dark. And I think that's the test, isn't it? I mean, isn't that the test like God's putting us through? Of, are you willing to stay faithful? Are you willing to stay committed, even when you know the outcome is terrible or could be terrible?
Yeah. Look, it's everything is a faith-based operation. We're to live by faith.
Mhm.
I don't make the rules. I didn't write the Bible, but that's the way that we're called to live. And we're also given supernatural promises for provision and protection. And to the degree that we're not beneficiaries of either, it's because our faith walk is one where we try to control God and control outcomes and control the Holy Spirit. And so we open doors where we're endangered because we don't have enough faith to trust that God's going to show up in a moment that's bleak. And so there have been many people that like to blame God, but when you ask them, were you obedient? Did you actually do what he told you to do on this day, in this instance? And usually the answer, if it's honest, is no, I kind of wanted to speed things up. I wanted to take things into my own hands. Like, okay, that intuition, that conscience, whatever you want to call it, that's not you. That's the Holy Spirit talking to Joe, saying, "Hey, Joe, just press pause." And it's like, well, I don't want to. It's like, okay, you got free will in this. You can do it, but you're not going to get what you want because you're not listening to the counsel of God and submitting to it. And we all have our own battles on how to get there. I've gotten to the point where I want to be as Jedi as I can be in the submission to the counsel of God, because it's always better. And I don't always see it. There have been seasons, you talk about seasons of darkness, seasons where I'm sitting there going, man, Lord, the hardest thing that you're asking me to do is to wait. Like, give me a battle and I'm happy. Put me in pause mode for 3 weeks. You're going to see someone that starts to, be miserable. And so that's my problem. Isn't so much about like being obedient or humble enough to follow through on orders from God to the degree that I can discern that I think it's from God. It's those times where it's like, okay, you've done what you're supposed to. Now sit down, shut up, and let me work through the millions of other believers to get them where they need to get in order for me to pull off this great miracle. And so there's this, the biggest enemy, Joe, it's always pride. It's always pride. And if we could just be humble enough in our belief that God is good, that he is who he says he is, that he cares about us. He's not going to abandon our country. He's not going to abandon you. Why? Because he loves you. He purchased you at a great price. He purchased me. And he wants to see our good from an eternal standpoint. And a lot of the things that we think that are good for us right now, if we would have been restored immediately, if we would have been restored according to our timetable, we wouldn't have learned the lesson. And so the lesson usually is, if you want to gain something, you got to die to it, whatever it is, because it's an idol. You got to kill this part of you. You got to give up this part of you. And as soon as I can trust that you're willing to give it up for me, I can actually give it to you, because you're not going to screw it up. I mean, I think that's been the journey for so many of us.
It's what you're saying is so true, and it's not trivial, right? This is not a trivial path that you take. It takes its toll, but you also, we over the last 6 years, and I don't want to recap you and I both through this. We've had some really special moments. I mean, we've had some really special moments. We've had some really special moments with our families. We've had special moments with people that are in the community in different states. We've had tears. We've had drinks. We've had laughter. We've had turmoil. We've had success. We've had high fives. We've had emotional highs, emotional lows. We've had bonding that made us spiritual brothers. These are all things that, if you were to ask me 6 years ago, is the juice worth the squeeze? Even if it turned out bad, I would say absolutely. Somebody asked me that, and I was like 100%, right? 100%. I would feel that way.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's also part of it that because of the shared experience, like there are friendships that because they've been established in an environment where 99% of the people chose safety. So when you forge a friendship with the 1%, that's a friendship where when someone picks up the phone, you and calls you, you answer, and you see each other as part of a network where your well-being is tied to my well-being. And so you've spoken many times about fraternities. That's how real fraternities are created, which is, when I see what the Hoff brothers have done and given up to just platform truth, people have no idea the amount of lawfare that they are under every second of every day. And as imperfect as the Hoff brothers may be, I think they're admirable men. they still get up and platform the truth. And so, Joe or Jim Hoff, give me a call. You better believe I'm going to pick up the phone and say, hey, how can I help you? How can we keep you guys in the fight? And there have been times where they've been a lifeline for me to get a story out to break the truth. Same thing with you, Joe. It's important that, you weren't put in prison for defying a corrupt order from a judge saying reveal a confidential source.
7 times.
So
otherwise, I'd still be there right now because I would have
that wouldn't have helped the movement to have you rotting away in a cell. So like that to me was like, it wasn't a question of friendship. It's like all hands on deck. Let's do what we can to ensure that 24 hours from now, you're not being escorted and put in a jail cell. And so there are stories like that for one another that people have no idea how much we work behind the scenes to keep people upright. And sometimes we don't feel like we're doing it as best as we could. I mean, we're all tired. I mean, there's times where I'm sitting there going, I wish I could have done more for this person or this person. But you'll take a look out and you say, okay, I see people aren't forgetting about Tina Peters. So for me, like, it was a big deal. I mean, I visited her and tried to capture things that were conducive to her release. And I probably would have, spent a lot more time on the day-to-days if I didn't see people with larger platforms keeping her kind of in full view of the American public. And those are the times where you can just say, praise God, because I don't have it in the tank to deal with the 1,000 fires I got to put out and be that person. So you'd have other folks that have risen to the challenge to pray with her, be with her. And so, like, whether it's Tina, whether it's you, whether it's me, whether it's, a handful of other people, we've survived. And, I think right now the biggest problem that we have is just our own wariness. It's really not, for me, it's actually easy to be optimistic about what Trump's doing. If we were fresh and we hadn't been through the battles, I think we would be elated with the progress that we've made, if we're being honest, on just the absolute immense changes that have taken place since Trump came into office in 2025. They aren't small, pretty huge stuff. So I think part of it is just because we've got blood, sweat, and tears invested in this movement that, the thing that makes us grumble is timelines. I just want it done. Just want it done with. And that's reasonable.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And it's, man, we're in agreement all the time. So I love these conversations because it gives me validation, especially after I had General Holt on and he goes, Joe, don't watch, this is going to be good. And then Juan O'Savin gets on, he tells me a bunch of more stuff. Obviously, are you going to be there the 10th through the 13th in Las Vegas? All right, good. I'll see you there. I do want to ask a couple things. We're not going to go much longer, guys, just because it is Friday. I know David's got a lot of things to do, and frankly, I got a lot of things to do. I got a lot of cool things to do, and it's Friday. Patrick's over there trying to figure out how he can get out of here to hang out with his family. And you guys are all online thinking to yourselves, I'm going to go hang out. But I do have a couple things. President Trump put this post up. Let's put it up. And this is him updating his presidential rankings. This is the ultimate troll, and it made me laugh. The greatest. And he puts it up, President Trump's at the top. I wanted to put a song behind it. Then you have Abe Lincoln, Washington, Roosevelt, Wilson, Jefferson, Jackson. Near great. It got, he had Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt, the other Roosevelt. Cleveland, he died young, right? Or at least he died quickly into office. Adams and Polk. Average, you had Clinton and John Quincy Adams. Monroe, Hayes, Madison, Van Buren, Taft. By the way, I love presidents, so I know a lot about these presidents. Yeah, below average, you had Tyler, Coolidge, Fillmore, Taylor, Buchanan, and Pierce. And then you had failures. Biden, Obama, Grant, Harding, Carter. Wait, where do we pass the Bushes somewhere? Where did the Bushes go? Oh, they didn't even make honorable mention. They didn't make the top. They didn't make the words. They didn't make it anywhere in between.
Yep.
What do you think of that?
Well, I think one of the things I put out was like everyone's outraged for good reason because the rankings are terrible. So I asked the question, who's missing? And come to find out that this exact thing, with exception of a few additions, is a exact copy of a ranking provided by Arthur Schlesinger in a 1948 Life magazine thing. So this isn't Trump's ranking. He just put himself at the top to troll everyone. And to the degree that there's been some additions, he added to the original failure. So the original failures already had Grant and Harding at the bottom. There were only two in the original post. You can find it online. He added Carter. He added Obama. He added Biden.
1,000%.
But he's not telling you that Coolidge is below average. He took an existing Life magazine ranking, and they're all in their exact same spot, and he just added a few people to it to troll people. I think most people would, that if they're students of history, they'd say that Roosevelt and Wilson were not great presidents. They were basically closet communists that were terrible for the nation. Most people would put Coolidge up there amongst the greatest presidents when it comes to actually living out conservative fiscal responsibility. I think it was pretty funny that he put Clinton in the average thing. There's still a soft spot for Bill for whatever reason. I thought Bill was near great. I think Hillary is diabolical, but I think that, Bill Clinton balanced the budget. He did a lot of things that would be considered today, if you move the Overton window, would be conservative in a lot of the things that he did. And he was much more, successful than either one of the Bushes, for sure. And, but you've got a lot of people. You've got JFK, that's not here. You've got Nixon, that's not here. You've got both Bushes that aren't here. And so, maybe one of the things that Trump is doing is, I want you to pay attention, not to who's here, but who's not here. Who are we not thinking of in terms of the explosive events that are going to be disclosed over the next 60 days? Look, the Bushes have a lot to answer for when it comes to the rigged election infrastructure that we've lived under. It was W that signed the Help America Vote Act into law. And, his dad was his main puppet string puller. Nixon, we know. Trump probably thinks it's one of the greatest men, greatest presidents, one of the most misunderstood presidents, because he was actually a good man that couldn't and wasn't prepared to take on the intelligence agencies of his day. And there are letters between Nixon and Trump where Nixon encouraged Trump to seriously consider running for president. So he had a mentor in Nixon for decades.
Yeah.
And I'm sure his counsel was, if you run, you better have an answer for the intelligence agencies. Well, who was the top of the CIA for a spell? H.W. Bush. So you start connecting these things. There's some through lines there that I think would be wise to not ignore on who's missing. And of course, JFK, they took him out. What does he have in common with Trump? Well, they tried to take him out. So ask the reasons on every single one of the people that's missing from this printout, why there might be significance as it pertains to Trump, and you might learn something.
No, I totally agree with you. You put this video up with, I think this is the one that said the drip drip. Let's play this video.
Technology that was invented 20 years ago. Now, the technology today, of course, is even more astonishing. But if every single person who wanted to enroll in SNAP or enroll in Medicaid or enroll in public housing was in a shared database that the federal government had access to verify age, citizenship, criminal record, other basic biographic facts, that single step alone would save taxpayers hundreds of billions of dollars. And you have to ask yourself, why would any politician oppose something so fundamental? We're not even debating eligibility rules, an important but separate debate. We are debating whether or not a person is lying to the government to extract funds for which they are plainly and clearly ineligible. The time has come to implement these reforms. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Yeah. So what I was thinking on that, Joe, was I think our national debt is largely illusory when you take into account that the American people have been so defrauded by the political class, and anyone that understands how contracts are enforceable. You also have to know how and when they are unenforceable or void as a matter of law. So one of the things that Trump is brilliant at is he doesn't worry about that number, that $40 trillion deficit, because he's looking at productivity, he's looking at investments, he's trying to provide a counter on the other side of the ledger while simultaneously highlighting all of the fraudulent systems that shouldn't count towards the national debt. If anything, they should be discharged and offset. So when you follow the work of like a Tom Luongo or people that will get on podcasts with General Holt, they're very, very clear about Besant and Trump are all about productivity. Yeah, they're all about products that provide value, not being a slave to some debt that's largely fictitious. It's not backed. So when you start seeing what some of the messaging where Besant went on record, said, hey, the gold's there in Fort Knox. Okay, great. Rand Paul did a spot visit. The gold's there. Like, why would you telegraph that? There are many people, myself included, that would say that there were decades where the gold wasn't there. But now you can start talking about gold-backed currency, getting back to a standard that's not fiat-based. And so there's all kinds of really cool things in the messaging there. But Stephen Miller, J.D. Vance, what they're pointing out is not only is there massive fraud everywhere, which we shouldn't be on the hook for, if you have that kind of analysis on benefits and beneficiaries, why is it a logical, huge hurdle to cross to say that the same data exists for elections? That's where I'm going with this, which is like, if you've got that dialed in, I guarantee you they've got it dialed in on voter rolls and ballots.
Yeah, I would agree with that fully. Matter of fact, I think they know. And I keep saying I'm not the smartest guy in the room. We're not the smartest people in the room. And we're pretty smart. I mean, we've been able to accomplish quite a bit. But I just believe that we're in a better place than, I just feel like we're in a better place than we've ever been. And yet there's some risks, right? And, nothing is guaranteed and, but God. But I have tried to calm the weather for people and say, listen, I don't have to like John Solomon, Steve Bannon. I have a list, long list of people that are on our side.
And I know, John. I know, Joe. Every time I get on your show, I'm bracing myself for.
No, I think that I've gotten to the point now where I don't want to. I'll call them out myself. I don't need any help, right?
Yeah.
But I say this because I think that it does us this. It basically causes people to walk away from the movement. And I think it's really dangerous, and I think we have to stay focused on what promises were made and that they will be delivered. I think President Trump is one of those people that will deliver it. I don't have to like some of the things that he says. I don't like this, what's happening in Iran. I don't like what's happening in Lebanon. I don't like what's happening in Gaza. There's things I don't like, right? It doesn't mean that I have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I think that's one of the things that the American people have largely become accustomed to, is that somebody comes out and says, I don't like this person. I don't like Tucker. So then I'm supposed to not like him. And I'm like, well, that's silly. I won't do it. Right. At the same time, with people on our side that play for Team Evil, I know they're evil. Right. You can't be friends with a pedophile and tell me you're a good guy. You can't. Sorry. So there are things that I have a non-starter on my side. So those are the give and takes that I try to put in front of people, in much more academic today than I think I've ever been. And I think that has to do with just getting to a place of peace. Like, you just get there and you're like, you're good. I'm there. Totally there.
Good to hear.
Yeah. I love your hat. I got one of those hats.
This one's signed.
Yeah, I got to sign one.
Nice.
I got to sign one. I was backstage with Mike or something, and they handed me one. I was like, oh, that's nice. So you want one of these? Sure. Yeah. I don't want to talk about him either. Bro, it's so good to see you. It's great to see you. It's great to see you're doing well. You look rested, other than the gray hair, which it comes with being that close to the nuclear fallout, right? That's what happens.
Yeah, well, you look at the burning bush long enough, you might start glowing, and I feel like that's part of it too.
I agree. Totally agree. Totally agree. All right. Well, can I get you to pray us out? Can we do that?
Yeah, please.
So before you do, just for everyone else, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and more. Give us a thumbs up if you're on Roku. Fastest growing part of this is Roku. Fascinating. We should have done this so long ago. So just people there that are on TV. Hi, Mom. Amazon, we got this 24-hour day, 7-day a week thing that's going to be coming out in the next 3 weeks. Stay tuned for that. I will tell you what it's going to be called. I'll tell you on Monday what it's going to be called. And I'll give you a sneak peek on what it's going to look like and how this all integrates into that. But think something along the lines of giving everybody a voice, right? Some of you guys don't like that. Some of you guys don't like the fact that I like to hear from Republicans and Democrats and like to Wreck-It Ralph. But I think it's necessary if you're going to get to a place where you move the window. Look at someone like Bobby Kennedy. He's a Democrat. But if you really look at the policies, just a good person who's done some amazing things, who has a long lineage of being a Democrat, who is running away from the radical ideologies and the liars that have really captured the ethos of both sides of the party. So it's going to be some pretty crazy stuff that we do. I'll clean that up for you there. And then David, again, I pray for you. I tell the kids and Aaron I said hello, and look forward to seeing you in Las Vegas in about 12 days, 13 days.
Yeah, me too. Okay. Dear Lord, we just thank you for your goodness. And Lord, we confess our need of you, and that you are our rock. You are our refuge. So Lord, I just pray for hearts of love and wisdom that can discern the challenges ahead of us, and that you would just have us be obedient to your will in service for the great saving work that you're carrying out in the United States and abroad. Pray for a special blessing on all those that are watching or listening. Lord, just lift people up, and we cry out for vindication, for a wave of justice. We know that you are the God of justice and vindication. So, Lord, we pray for the ability to submit to your perfect timing, and that you just give us hearts and lips that are full of gratitude and praise for you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thanks, brother. You guys need to follow David. You can follow him on a lot of different platforms, but I think X is probably the one he's most active on. Also, go over to Substack if you would and sign up for his Substack. I am a member. I watch him. Go to his Substack. That's where you'll get a bunch of really good information over there as well. So, David, thanks again. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Joe. God bless.
All right. God bless you. All right, that's all we have today. Don't have much more for you. Obviously, get a little bit on the. We got a bunch of other stuff that we want to talk about, but frankly, I'm just going to give it a break. I'm going to leave you with that. I'm going to leave you with the message that we had today. I think it was powerful. I think there's a lot to come from it. So, Susan Rice, good to see you. One Voice 2016, the great duo is always a great show. America First, absolutely. Learn from Levine. I never understood the national debt, and still don't. Learn from Levine. You're not wrong. The national debt is not $40 trillion. It's all a lie. It's kabuki theater. We'll get to the bottom of all that. I'll do a special show on that sometime in the future, where I show you how I went through and analyzed the 30-year mark of how they create debt. So the debt on a budget goes for 10 years. They try to stack it on top of each other. It's a little bit of fool's gold. We have debt, but we don't have that much, frankly, which is why no one's all that concerned about it. But the sky is falling, and $40 trillion of debt allows for them to take 57%, 58%, 59%, 60%. So you're just not wrong. Teresa says Steve Miller's a genius. Yes, he is. Absolutely. Teresa also says Bill Clinton is dripping with HIV. Ooh, I don't know about that. That's kind of, I thought that happened during the Bush Jr. or Senior time frame. I could be wrong. What else we got here? Jeff, freedom of the press was integral for our foundings. These pamphleteers are vital to influencing our thinking. I agree with that. And it's good to see so many people chatting on the chat. 80 million Christians in the U.S. that all got unified and active. We could not be stopped. But somehow Christians think it's okay to let the country go to hell. I don't know if that's true. Jeff, I'm not sure if that was true. If I was much younger and smarter, I would try to invest to somehow convince our great nation that freedom of the press should not be legally permitted. Freedom of speech, yes, but not the press. I think what you're referring to, learn from Levine, is something we should probably pay attention to. And that is the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of 2012 allowed for the people to be lied to by the press. And it's not the freedom of press that is the problem. It's the fact that it's infiltrated and largely been held hostage by radical influences that use it as a beat stick to stop the truth from getting out. So maybe that's just my opinion, but there you have it. All right, guys, listen. Again, you're the arbiters of truth. You have to be the ones to share. I want to thank the people out there on the different platforms, especially pill.net. A great platform, by the way, if you want to go over there and start some chatting over there. We're starting to learn about more about what happens on YouTube. So the people that are on YouTube, it's good to see you guys as well. Michael, I see you were over there on YouTube. And then Rumble, look, we're going to have to deal with getting censored. Obviously, when you take shots at people like Bongino, you're going to have to deal with the fallout. But we're just going to continue to grow and do the things that we do on Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, all those other things. But again, you are the arbiters of reality. Is it a good show? Is it not a good show? Share it with your friends. Let's get together and let's have the conversation. God bless you. Have a great weekend. And I'll see you soon.
Rise up untamed in the heart of the fire where the wild ones roam. Jocelyn's calling, bringing truth back home. From conservative daily to this untamed fire, we shatter the silence, lifting spirits higher. No chains can hold us, no lies can prevail. Authentic and fearless on this rugged trail. Patriots gather under stars and stripes. Untamed nation, igniting the night. Untamed nation, let the truth roll out in this land of the free. Standing proud from sea to shining sea, we won't back down. Catch the fire, wear the crown. Untamed nation, it's our battle song, motivating hearts where the brave belong. Yeah, untamed and wild, forever strong. Play it again all night long. Break the mold, chase the real. No more games, time to heal. Joe's voice leads the untamed crew. Truth matters through and through.